And when I asked her this question, she looked at me, smiled, and I saw the mask dropped, and I saw who she really was. I recently had a conversation with someone I've known for a very long time. During this conversation, I picked up on some rather strange signs that were indicating that this person was far more toxic than I thought. I'll share with you 5 of those signs and specific questions to ask. It was really interesting because she was not guarded with me, and therefore I was able to elicit a lot of information about how she and other toxic people think. Bear in mind, this is not a diagnostic of this person being a narcissist. It is simply an observation of 5 highly toxic traits that I have observed in people who fit the description of a narcissist. Number 5, she kept on interrupting me to fight against a hallucinated opinion. During the conversation, we discussed many things, and I tend to articulate relatively nuanced points, and she would have a tendency of interrupting me mid-sentence, accuse me of thinking something I did not think, and start fighting against this hallucinated opinion, which was not my opinion. If I was not careful, I would end up defending an opinion that wasn't mine, which of course makes no sense whatsoever. And it can be really strange because we can assume if the person thinks I think this, maybe I just didn't express myself properly. Maybe I wasn't clear. But when the person interrupts you mid-sentence, they're not listening to what you're saying. They don't really care. They're simply picking a fight. So the answer to this is to ask a very simple question, which is, what is it specifically that you think I think? Explain to me, using your words, what you think my opinion is on this. When they do it, you can systematically point out, that's not what I think, that's not what I said, these are not the words I'm using. This leads us to point 4. When I did this, she didn't believe me when I was correcting her. She was accusing me, saying, well, surely when you say this, this is what you mean. Which first of all was not true, and secondly, generally made no sense. It can be really difficult when we're accused of being a liar, because not being believed when we're telling the truth is one of the most painful experiences we can have as humans, and therefore we desperately want to be believed because otherwise we feel unsafe. This only makes sense if we believe we're dealing with someone who is honest, who genuinely didn't understand what we were thinking, who actually cares about the truth, and who gives us a fair chance to be heard. But when we realize we're dealing with a liar who will always systematically misinterpret what we are saying just in order to make us look bad, arguing with them makes no sense whatsoever. So to counter this, I suggest asking 2 questions. First of all, call them out. Are you calling me a liar? If you believe that I think something and I tell you that you are wrong, are you really calling me a liar? Because that is really what you're doing. You're saying I'm lying to you. That when I tell you I don't believe something, it's a lie. I actually do believe it, and I'm lying to your face. If you are calling me a liar, just call me a liar. Just say it explicitly. Let's get it out there. And regardless or not of whether you're calling me a liar, explain to me, how can you know better than me what I think? Are you a telepath? Do you believe that you can read people's minds? Because if you don't believe you can read people's minds, you're telling me I think something and I'm telling you that you are wrong. Why should I listen to you? Why should you be right? This is just a form of gaslighting. These people try to make you believe that you're not being clear and maybe you mean something. And sometimes they say, well, it could be interpreted that way. It's like, okay, everything can be interpreted some way. If you choose the worst possible interpretation, that says a lot about you. It says nothing about me. If I'm not clear with my communication, you still have a range of interpretations that are possible. If you only want the worst one, that makes you one of the worst people in humanity. A normal person will simply say, there are multiple interpretations, I'm not sure which one is right. Could you explain to me, because I don't know how to understand this. It could be one thing, it could be the worst one, but it could be multiple other ones. I don't know. We give the benefit of the doubt. People who refuse to give the benefit of the doubt are part of the worst part of humanity, and they are simply manipulators. And then number 3, in her story, she kept playing the victim. She was talking to me about communication problems she had with her husband, and she was laying the blame on him. The reason why we have problems in our relationship is because he won't talk. I am forced to run after him, to push him, to shout at him, to relentlessly keep going after him to make him express himself, and he doesn't want to do it. The problem is him. And if I have to do this, it is because he refuses to give me what I want. He makes me do this by shutting down. Of course, when I heard this, alarm bells went off, and I was pointing out, that seems like you're not accepting his boundaries. If he doesn't want to talk, he doesn't want to talk. She got angry and aggressive and said, what about my right to have him express himself? And I pointed out, well, if he doesn't want to, you might have a communication problem going on there. Maybe you shouldn't shut down that much. But if he shuts down when you shout at him, if you continue shouting, what do you think is going to be the outcome? She said, well, he should learn that unless he stops shutting down, I will continue shouting. I pointed out, that's blackmail. She got very upset at that, of course. And she kept pointing the finger at him as being the perpetrator. In this situation, I asked her the million-dollar question. You want him to respond a certain way, and he doesn't want to, for whatever reason, not taking sides, for whatever reason. If you were paid $1 million to stop, could you do it? And she gave me a chilling answer. I don't think so. I don't think I'd be able to control myself. I think my urge to get him to respond is greater than $1 million. Anyway, it's just money. Just got this disdain for money, like a lot of narcissists do, like it's just something dirty or something horrible. And I suggested $1 million, you can do a lot with that. You can build a lot of schools, you can build a lot of hospitals, you can pay for a lot of operations, you can do a lot of good in the world. If all you have to do is stop for a year or even a month, just shut your mouth, allow him to have his space where he feels comfortable, and allow him to come towards you and open up towards you when you're ready. Would you be able to do that? And her response was, I don't think I can. I think the urge is greater. Point number 2, talking about the relationship. What kind of solution was she seeing? She was saying they were going to see a couples therapist, and the couples therapist had this very nice, pretty metaphor saying that it's a bit like he's like a turtle and she's like a hailstorm, and when she hails down, he goes back inside his little shell. And I was thinking, that's not appropriate, because it really feels like you're describing domestic abuse, like aggressive words, aggressive tone. If what I was sitting through over that lunch was anything to go by, it was an absolute nightmare. A few hours was enough to exhaust me, and I'm pretty trained at this, at arguing, and I'm not married to her, and I don't have children with her. So if that was anything to go by, the poor guy must be exhausted. And the therapist was just saying, well, it's just communication problems. And so I asked her, well, specifically, you have a problem when he doesn't respond to you. Have you been alone to see a therapist? To talk about why you have such a need to have someone feed you with their energy and their attention and getting the kind of output that you want. She got pretty upset. She's going, well, I don't have a problem. He is the problem. He should go and see a therapist, but the goal of seeing this therapist together is to get him to change. Why should I change? The problem is him. If only he did what I wanted, I would not be forced to act this way. And this leads me to the question that unmasked her. And now I have virtually no doubt in my mind. I told her about a fantastic book, which is called Talk to Me Like I'm Someone You Love. This book is beautiful. I highly recommend all of you buy it, read it, understand it. The book offers short sentences, flashcards that help improve communication in a relationship when it's difficult to communicate. This works beautifully with healthy people, and with narcissists, it's a hilarious catastrophe. I've tried it with toxic people, and when we see how they try to use the book, they don't understand anything. They've got no idea. It makes no sense. It's gibberish. So it's a fantastic narc test, actually. So I tell her about this book, and she says, oh yeah, that book. You gave it to me. And I'd completely forgotten I'd given it to her. And I remembered then all of a sudden, yeah, I gave it to her. I did, actually. I did give it to her. I did give it to her about 5 years prior. So yes, I gave it to you, said I. And have you used it with your husband? And she says, he hasn't read it. Okay, I'm assuming that she showed it to him and he didn't want to read it. So I ask, did you show it to him? And that's where the mask dropped. She had this smile. She'd been caught. I unmasked her. She smiled and didn't reply. And that's when I started thinking, this is like seriously weird. I asked, well, you didn't show it to him. Why didn't you show it to him? No reply. And I keep repeating, I gave you a solution to a problem you've had for the past 5 years. You are raising 2 children in a tense household. Your husband is super stressed. He's subsidizing your lifestyle. He's paying for the house, paying for the children. He's allowing you to do a job that pays a little bit of something but isn't that serious. He's doing all of this. He's super stressed at work. You know he's been working his backside off. He's been trying to provide. It's been really difficult. There's been very little support. Your relationship is ultra tense. You've been complaining about it for the past years. I gave you a solution. And you haven't tried it? No response. This is one of the keys with narcissists. They will claim to have a major problem in their life. And when you offer a solution, they don't want it.